Shreveport City Council is now called to order. I'm going to ask Councilwoman Tabitha Taylor to lead us in prayer. I'm going to ask Councilman Brooks to lead us in the pledge.
You will bow your heads. Oh, merciful Father, we come to you today giving you all thanks and praises. Thank you for the opportunity to serve. I come right now uplifting the Lewis family to you as they experience grief in the most unfathomable way. I pray for our city and all of those victims that have been a victim of crime. I ask that you would cover. I ask that you would cover our law enforcement officers as they have to travel these streets on a daily basis. You know where the needs are. You know where the level of the protection needs to be. I pray for all of our city workers that you will embolden them with everything that they need. And I pray for our citizens as well, that we will grow and move and support each other, that we will allow our city to be fervent and vibrant. This we ask in your Son, Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Please join us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Again, I'd like to ask that if you have your cell phones, if you'd be kind enough to turn them off or put them on silent. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilwoman Taylor.
Present.
Councilman Brooks.
Here.
Councilman Calipari.
Here, ma'am.
Councilman Butcher.
Here.
Councilman Jackson.
Here.
Councilman Green.
I'm here.
And Councilwoman Benoit.
Present.
Thank you. Tomorrow, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of Saturday, December 31st, 2022, Administrative Conference City Council combined meeting, the organizational meeting, and Amendment 1 to the organizational meeting. At this time, does any council member have any awards, recognition of distinguished guests not to exceed 15 minutes? Councilwoman Taylor?
I do, Mr. Chair. May I have Chief Smith and Chief White to come up, please?
Chief Smith is out of town, Madam
Chief White?
Councilwoman.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for your service. I know it's National Law Enforcement Day. Thank you all for everything that you all do for the city of Shreveport. And to all law enforcement entities everywhere, my greatest appreciation for you. This past week, the first week of January, we've had a violent week within the city of Shreveport, starting on January 1st. Sorry with the death of a young man. That his life was taken brutally, that followed through with a number of subsequent events that happened in pretty much my district, Councilman Green's, Councilwoman Bowman, as well as Councilman Jackson's district. In my district, unfortunately, there was another loss of life and two children that were shot, and specifically when I was on the scene Saturday at Peach Street Apartments with the 4-year-old that was shot. And I appreciate as many people as you all had out on the streets, but it then speaks to the concern that you're going to have within the community, because I know you all have worked so hard to reduce those numbers when it comes to crime. It's one of the main reasons that I'm again asking this council to, when I'm adding this resolution and asking the administration to hire an outside contractor to get those cameras installed that we need throughout the city. You all need that additional support. A number of the businesses that are in the area, their cameras were not working. And that causes a real concern, because you have individuals that reside within those communities that may be afraid to speak to the police. They may be afraid because of the retaliatory efforts that they've seen by so many. I thank you for the curtailing of what could have been even worse on Saturday night by you all catching a number of individuals that are there. But I want to make sure that we have everything that we need, because we've talked about cameras so much. The money was already allocated for it. We had a number of issues, I believe, when it comes to the polls with SWEPCO and the Real-Time Crime Center. But what I envision for the Real-Time Crime Center is for that effort to be brought under the auspices of Shreveport Police Department, where you will have cameras that will be functioning, that you will be able to to receive information in a real-time effort in order to help you come back and curtail what we see. It is very heartbreaking when you have to go on the scene for a 4-year-old that's an innocent bystander that is in his or her home, and then they have to be reduced to this level of gunfire. So you tell us if there's anything else additional that you need on this council, but this is one of the things that I am asking for to be unanimously passed tomorrow, to add this to the agenda, because we need to get this done. No more excuses when it comes to that. We just can't rely on anybody else's cameras. We need our own cameras.
Yes, ma'am. And let me first say that we appreciate the council's support and also the city administration support in reference to the equipment, the tools, and the funding that you've supplied to us in the past. And we just ask and we know that we'll have your continued support. In reference to the cameras, of course, they're an invaluable tool. Obviously, if we had more cameras that were up and functioning, that would greatly assist us on what we do, what we have to do on a day-to-day basis. We all know that right now, just like every other law enforcement agency across the world, we're 100 and plus some odd officers short. So we have to think outside of the box, and we have to utilize technology to make sure we provide the best services possible to our citizens.
Ms. Devlin, I know that, is Ms. Moore here? Bonnie Moore? Yes. I know in support of that and going in and getting these particular cameras issued by hiring an outside contractor to come in and install those around the city. We have another initiative that I passed last quarter with Operation Safe Neighborhoods that we're moving on, that those citizens that are in need of cameras, that they can go and apply. And we're still working on that to get that bid process done so it would be effective enough to go in to help in those neighborhoods that need them. I'm sure that we're going to do a number of community walks, as we have already talked about, and the restoration of that commitment between law enforcement and community that you all have done so much of. What I want to see and what I don't want to have is a community that is afraid. But when you have these instances that happen in the daytime, when you have this and there are small children, it's going to pull at everyone's heartstrings, and it just almost makes the work that you all have been doing and releasing, picking up guns and getting guns off the street mute, because you're focused on those things. What happened to the young lady on Saturday morning was beyond tragic. My heart goes out to the Lewis family, but I know that that's not enough for them as far as us going in and catching whomever it is that are creating these acts. And once they are caught, then we need to make sure that due process is served, and I know that goes out of our hands to the DA and the judges at that particular point in time. So I do want to speak to the fact of Operation Safe Neighborhood. It's an initiative that I'm looking at, that we're still waiting on those bids to come in, that we will be able to supply those instruments that are needed to provide safety to our residents here. But I also, Mr. Mayor, want to make sure that we run and have whatever initiatives that we need to with the dollars that we already have allocated for those cameras to get them up and operable throughout the city of Shreveport, especially those high crime areas, that will provide SPD and whatever other agency that we're working with the tools that they need to keep our community safe and to make sure that our officers come back home.
Mr.
Thank
Chair,
you.
Yes.
Ms. Moore, do you have anything? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I would just echo Vice Chairman Taylor. Hopefully, we will unveil Operation Safe Neighborhoods in the first quarter of this year. As she has indicated, we had an impediment with the bids. We were not able to get sufficient bids last year for the program, but I think it will be a game changer for this community. It's been very well thought out. We will have tools that the community can use to help address crime issues within their neighborhoods. We're really excited about what this will bring forth to this community.
Thank you so much, Ms. Moore.
Councilman Booth.
Thank you. Chief, First off, I want to say my heart goes out to everybody involved over the weekend, especially your law enforcement officers. I want to recognize them today especially, since it's Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. But I've had probably, Councilwoman, about 6 or 7 conversations with Chief Smith over the last month about this, and I'm sure you have as well. And he agrees that we need to bring this up underneath the police department. I support your legislation 100%. As far as getting the cameras out and getting them up soon. I think that's what we wanted over a year ago, and it didn't work out quite as the way that we had anticipated. So whatever we can do to help you as a council, I think this will be a bipartisan, doesn't matter what neighborhood it's in. And, as far as my district goes, put them in the high crime districts first. I don't necessarily, we have some areas in my district that have issues, but let's get them in those high crime areas where we're seeing all the murders and all the shootings and all the shots fired, and then move as we can. But I'm 100% for it, and I think, I'm not speaking for Chief Smith, but from the conversations we had, even one last week, he's ready to roll with it. So I support your legislation, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate
Thank you.
that. Also, in support of that as well, one of the other things, and sometimes that we see that may be another contributing factor to crime, is the cleanliness of the neighborhoods as well. And sometimes when individuals see that level of blight and trash that we see around this city, then they think that it is okay for you to turn around and commit crimes. So I want to make sure that we look at, and we want to look at, that the environmental police officers that we had, Mr. Mayor, that we look and see how do we fund them so they can go in and make sure that they initiate whatever it is that needs to be initiated to help you all, Mr. Norman as well as Mr. Green, and working with Ms. Calloway at Shreveport Green, that we're gonna work to help to get these neighborhoods cleaned up. I've spoken to Ms. Rogers and Rudolph Glass in the neighborhoods within our district, and Ms. Phillips, in order to move to initiate that, because we want to change the landscape of what it is that we see. And so whatever support too, Mr. Mayor, that we need to get from the state on that, I think that needs to be fully executed, because that also has that premise of what we see when we talk about crime and what and what we see that leads to that.
Yes, ma'am.
They have already been instrumental in doing that last quarter and the quarter before. I'm sure that Property Standards has a listing of when they're gonna come out and again do their cleanups, but we wanna aid and assist in making sure that that is done collectively as well.
Yes, ma'am, and we definitely appreciate your support. And speaking on behalf of Chief Smith, we're going to use every available resource that we have at our disposal to combat the violent crime that's happening in our city. We've responded one too many times to children that have become victim of senseless crime, many sleepless nights. So rest assured that every available resource. We're reaching out. I had the pleasure of attending a violent crime summit a couple of weeks ago in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and sitting in a room with police chiefs from all over the nation. These are the conversations that we were having, because this is happening all over the country. But having said that, it's good to have those peer exchanges, because what's working somewhere else could very well work here. So we're always open to any assistance that we can get. Just know that you have that renewed commitment from the police department.
Correct, and we're always here to lend our support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Before you leave, Chief, I guess, can I see you after the meeting? And this is, I don't know if anybody else is having these issues, but I've had about 3 or 4 calls this week on ABO issues of getting the license renewed.
Okay.
So I've got one specifically I need to talk to you about after the meeting.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Councilman Brooks?
Yes. Chairman, I'd like to call up the Executive Director of the Downtown Development Authority, special guest Liz Swain, to discuss some plans and issues for downtown Shreveport. Yes.
Thank you, Councilman Brooks, and I am happy to be here. Welcome to all of you. It is great to have you. Welcome to downtown Shreveport. And Tom Dark, this is weird. I used to work with him about 125 years ago, give or take. So it's great to have you back. And Mayor, thank you so much. Everybody, I just want to give you a 30,000-foot view of downtown Shreveport. I think it will help all of us in knowing what's ahead and what's to come. First, welcome to downtown Shreveport. It is our heart and soul of our community. It's our historic, the place where we all got our start. A significant number of the millions of people who pass by every day on the interstate and who fly through downtown Shreveport will only see our downtown. They will come to something at the convention center, they will go to the casinos, they may come to one of our festivals, go to one of our art galleries. So downtown may be the only place that these visitors see. So it's important for our downtown to be a clean place, a safe place, a place where they're happy and engaged, because if it is, they will likely want to come back and spend more money. But it's not just about visitors. It's about all of us. It's about everybody in the audience, everybody watching us, and everyone in every one of your districts. Downtown wants to be the place where we can create the quality of life that our city deserves, and that, quite honestly, we have already. We have a tremendous quality of life with our festivals, with our art, with our culture. Downtown is the place where that all comes together, and we want downtown to be a place that can help grow our community even more. But you know, it's not just about fun. It's about business, it's about money. And money, as we all know, is important. Every single initiative that you will be talking about over the next 4 years will deal with how do we pay for it. Well, one of the ways that you pay for it is by tax dollars, the sales and property tax dollars that you get off of the buildings in downtown. Downtown tall buildings, even those buildings that are 2 stories and higher, in many cases, when you look at the property and sales tax per acre, we are making on these taller buildings more per acre than some of the big box stores than we're seeing in the outlying districts. So it's important for the downtown buildings to be doing well for the good of our community as a whole. That's why it's very important to keep an eye on commercial occupancy. And Councilman Butcher, I know this is dear to your heart because you're in the real estate business, and any of you who are, you want to know what the occupancy numbers are. So take a look at right now, we have a variety of properties in downtown, A, B, C, and other types of what they call ABC properties, our high-rise real estate. Some have apartment or parking lots that are attached to them, some don't. But we have occupancy figures from about 30% or a little bit lower, all the way up to about 90% at present. Now, let me tell you something that's interesting. This does not include all of the properties in downtown. We have actually taken properties off this list. There are properties, Jim, you're in the real estate business too. We have a number of properties downtown that are vacant that cannot currently be used because they're not up to code. Because you can't move into these properties, because they're going to take a significant amount of investment dollars, we have removed those properties from the list. So the ones that you see here are those that are ready to move into, that you can flip the lights on, you can set up your desk, and you can go. So downtown's occupancy should matter to us all because it tells us whether we have a healthy downtown or we do not. What do we do about properties that aren't doing well? Well, there are a number of reasons why they aren't. COVID is certainly the largest. The change in the oil and gas climate is one. The 3 banks, the large banks that have moved out of downtown and have made a number of thousands of square feet vacant, that certainly has hurt downtown properties. But COVID, when you take a look around the country, Councilwoman Taylor, I know you travel. In downtown New York, in Manhattan, in downtown San Francisco, properties now are at 15% occupancy, where prior to COVID they were closer to 100% occupancy. So we're seeing this all over the country. It is a remarkable phenomenon. It is the $64 billion question. How do we put people back in these buildings? Do we put them back in office buildings? Are people going to want the same amount of office square footage that we wanted before? That is the question. Our sister agency, which is called the Downtown Shreveport Development Corporation, it's a nonprofit. We're currently doing a market study to determine, is there a market locally? Does it make dollars and cents for some of these buildings to be rehabbed and reimagined as mixed-use apartment space? That's going to cost a lot of money. a lot of money to reposition these buildings. So it's going to have to make sense for these owners. So we're going to have, hopefully, the results of that market study within the next couple of months, and we will definitely be talking with you about what we find on that. But we are also, all of us, are at the mercy of property owners who are either unwilling or unable to do anything with their property. We have a number of vacant properties in our downtown that are blighted, that are bringing down the property values of everything around them. And we have really, the city of Shreveport, we have nothing in our tool chest to fight this. Or maybe we do. Maybe we do have a way to encourage the owners of these buildings to either take a more active role or to be willing to sell these buildings to someone who will take an active role, because you can see the difference in buildings that have been rehabbed. These are the buildings that create life, that create tax base, that create jobs, that create places for people to go and things for them to do. This is what we want, not the vacant buildings. We're seeing buildings of all sizes downtown be rehabbed, and many of these by locals. We're not just talking about people outside of Shreveport coming in with money. We're talking about local people who are deciding to take these beautiful buildings and return them into something that, again, all of us will enjoy, will be eager to come downtown and participate in, and again, creating that tax base, creating those jobs, and creating that vibrancy. We do have some major projects that are on the boards, very exciting. One of the projects is a city project. It's the old Expo Hall that's going to be turned into the sports facility, which I think is going to be a very popular thing for not only the city of Shreveport, but for downtown. We've got the state office building, the old blighted Jody Wagner building that's being converted into something of use. And then we have the Petroleum Tower, which is a 15-story tower that's been vacant for nearly 30 years, right in the middle of our central business district. And this is a developer from outside of Shreveport, and he's interested into turning it into market rate apartments. But he's going to need a little bit of help, and that's a question we need to be talking about as well. What is help? Is there help that's potentially available? Because, folks, residential for downtown continues to be key. That's where you have people who are living down here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, out walking the dogs in the morning, going to the restaurants in the evening, shopping at the shops. And our size city, we are underbuilt for residential downtown. Most cities of our size in terms of population, our size in terms of square miles, has about 2,000 or more residential units downtown, and that seems to be kind of a magic number that will encourage those other businesses to come into your downtown, those grocery markets, the drugstore, the gas station that people ask about so much. They won't move in if there aren't enough people living downtown because it's too big a risk. And most developers, as we know, are risk averse. They want to move into a place where they know they at least can have the possibility of making some money. So residential is definitely key, and we continue to work on that. But there are those buildings that would be beautiful residential buildings, like the Johnson Building on Milam, the Slattery Building on Texas Street, and others that have zero parking. Zero parking. And we know with residential, at least, you need to have parking, if not adjacent to it, close by. Back in 2011, the Downtown Development Authority for the city of Shreveport created a parking study. We hired a group out of Michigan to come in to do a study to tell us what it is we need, what we have, what we're lacking, and what we were going to be lacking in 5 years. And their numbers are surprising. It showed that the municipality, the city of Shreveport, owned or controlled only 11% of all downtown parking. 11%. Most other cities our size own or control over 50%. 50%. Now, you can trade parking spaces as an incentive. If you've got someone who's looking to rehab a building and they need parking and the city has parking that they can barter, they can go to that person, they can say, if you will rehab this building, if you'll put your $20 million into the building, we'll allow you to use these 100 parking spaces. Unfortunately, the way it sits now, the city of Shreveport doesn't have that luxury because the city of Shreveport doesn't have that parking to give away. So that's why we did this parking study to show where parking garages were going to be needed in order for us to be able to rehab some of these buildings. We do have concerns. There's a lot of great things going on, but just like anywhere else, if I told you that it was all blue skies and butterflies, you wouldn't believe me, and it's not. We do have our issues as well. We have the same issues as everyone else in wanting to see more police presence. If we can't keep people safe downtown, if we can't keep their perception of being safe intact, then we have lost the battle before we even start. We have blight and property standards issues. Some of the buildings that we have downtown, obviously you're very familiar with 114 Texas, the one that burned, and the city is having to deal with that now. We have homelessness issues downtown, as we are seeing throughout the city, and we have, for developers, the rising cost of construction that is blowing their budgets out. There is no great city without a great downtown. All of you have traveled, you've all gone places, you've seen beautiful downtowns, and you've thought highly of the city because of it. If you go into a city that has a blighted, scary, kind of sketchy downtown, then you think poorly of the rest of the city. So it's important to all of us to have that great downtown. And I'd like to end by telling you this. We are from Shreveport, and we love it. And we're going to continue to work as hard as we can along with our council members. And I consider all of you downtown's council members. So I'm going to be contacting all of you on a regular basis. Get ready. That anything that we, the Downtown Development Authority or Downtown Shreveport Development Corporation, can do for any of you, please let us know. Anybody got any questions?
Yes, sir.
Just a couple of questions, Liz. Thank you for the presentation. I always enjoy downtown. That's one of the first things I was drawn to when I moved here.
Thank
was
you.
looking at those big buildings coming in on I-20
Yeah.
from Bossier. So a couple of things I wanted to ask. Number one, we've talked about this before. We have a new mayor. Maybe he can help us. I wish we could get the flag back on the Chase building. I know it got struck by lightning and all this, but that was such a center point for our city. I don't know if there's nonprofits or somebody that might be able to help us. I know the pole's broken supposedly, and there's all kinds of issues, but just seeing that pole there, I was coming in today, and it's odd that you're here, and I was thinking, gosh, I wish we'd get that flag back up there. It just gives pride to our city, and underneath the American flag, it'd be really nice to have a Shreveport flag flying under it as well. So
A really large one.
yeah. Secondly, the sign on the old Commercial National Bank building, the original building. I've been talking to some people about that. That's another thing that I've been, the time and temperature sign. They say now that there are these LED signs that you can buy relatively inexpensively that will do, I say relatively inexpensive, but, not compared to what that sign originally cost. I would like for us to look into that, and maybe your nonprofit look into that and let me know what I can do to help, not necessarily as a government body, but what we could do to help as a city to maybe do that, to build some pride back in downtown, because it's just not the same without that sign and that flag flying. So that's the number one thing. Second thing, the Slattery building, the Johnson building, and the Arkla building. You answered about the petroleum, and I'd actually talked to an architect that's doing some work, and that sounds very promising on that. But those other three buildings, what are the status on those? We looked at the Arkla building for a police station, and it's pretty jammed up in there. I mean, it doesn't really need much of anything. Not that I'm suggesting moving the police station there, but it does look good. So what are the status on those buildings?
So let me start with the Johnson and the Slattery building. And the gentleman who owns those two buildings also recently bought the building that used to be the Chase building,
Okay.
which is no longer the Chase building because the bank moved out several years ago. So that's 400 Texas now. And that is a gentleman out of Monroe, Louisiana, who is kind of a collector of buildings. He loves to own buildings and owns quite a number of them in downtown Shreveport. But I think that we are re-engaging with him, as we do every year or so, to have him put on his thinking cap about what he wants to do with his properties. Now, his properties, the Slattery building has zero parking. The Johnson building has 0 parking. So both of those properties, he has told me, has signed nothing, but has told me that he would be willing to begin rehab on the Johnson building, and it may lead to rehab on the Slattery building if he had access to parking. So that's definitely a conversation for all of us to have about, ways to potentially create additional parking that would open the door on about 500,000 square feet of rehabbed space in downtown Shreveport. And the same is true of the Centerpoint, the old Centerpoint building. It sold about a year ago to a gentleman out of California. He has ideas for the building, but again, has very little parking. There is a surface lot behind it that does not go with the building. It's privately owned. He did get 2 smaller lots about a block away that he could use, but there are also some possibilities if we could do a multi-level parking garage that would be about the same distance from the Johnson building, the Slattery building, the ARCLA, the old ARCLA building, then we could open up again multiple uses for buildings that right now are sitting mostly vacant. And so I think that there is a great conversation to be had, especially with these new owners.
Is the Slattery building 100% unoccupied now?
It is.
Okay. And I know the Johnson building's got windows knocked out and everything.
Correct.
So it's only going to deteriorate even more.
And that is the problem with vacant buildings. The longer they sit vacant, the worse they get, the less, the more they go down on the tax rolls, the more they impact all the buildings around them, and they create just a real problem for not only that block, but downtown and the city in general.
Does the Chase building have any tenants in it right now?
It does. The Chase building is between 20 and 30% occupied, and it sold recently, and that was one of the reasons that it sold. It was owned by a company out of the Houston area, and then they sold it to the gentleman from Monroe, and he has some ideas but hasn't decided yet what direction he's going to go. But we're working with him, hopefully, every step of the way on that.
Well, thank you for the update.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you
Ms.
very
Brown,
much.
I do
Yes.
have a question. So I understand downtown sits in Councilman Brooks in our in our district. As far as the riverfront is concerned.
Yes.
In this particular plan, do you have any expectations for that in its growth and development? Because there's always an attraction when there's water.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that we have talked about is the discussions that we would love to have with the general managers of the boats and
Correct.
talking to them about the options that they have now with the House bill that was passed,
Correct.
allowing them to do more
Land-based.
on land. I think that is a great opportunity for them. The aquarium is doing very well right now, and in fact is looking at possibility of expansion, so that will be working with the city on that. Cyport is definitely holding their own now. With the expo hall coming in as that sporting complex, I think that we're going to see a tremendous amount of foot traffic created by that. And all that's left right now in that area that needs some tender loving care is the Red River District. And Mayor, I've got some great ideas on that for you. I'd love to meet with you on that and the council as well to talk about what that Red River District can become, especially when the expo hall is opened up and welcoming people in. So, Councilwoman, such opportunities. We're the only city that I have been able to find in the United States that has 2 waterfronts.
Correct.
And we are using them lightly. One, we're not using at all.
Correct.
And the other, there's so many more things that we could be doing.
So I definitely want, when we meet with the GMs, for Councilman Brooks to be in that meeting, and have a meeting with the GMs. And I also want to make sure that we pull on our state delegation as
Yes.
well to ensure whatever type of incentives that we need to offer to the gaming entities within that and within our district to help them expand, to incentivize. What we have a problem when we have revenue down is because Oklahoma and all of those entities are expanding their gaming operations, and then for us, we're shrinking and we're hurting because we're not building more in that particular capacity. The online sports betting is happening a great deal in Bossier City, but it's not helping us on this side of the river.
And with the new casino that's going to be coming on in Bossier City, it takes our pie and it slices
Correct.
those pieces even more
Correct.
thinly.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Mr. Chairman, hold on.
Yes.
If you and Councilman Brooks can identify EV spaces in downtown,
Yes.
I think that'll be great to drive traffic from other cities to this central location. It takes about 30 minutes to charge, but they can also visit our stores and our shops while their cars are charging. So if
We
you
got a
can
grant.
identify- Yeah,
We got a grant for EVs.
okay. Have you identified locations yet?
We have.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would love to see those locations.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Also, Councilman Butcher, if you talk to Shelley, Shelley can get you the flag, Shelley can get you the sign, Shelley can get you everything. Just talk to Shelley. Yeah.
I know we got some property we can sell to maybe pay for that, Shelley, so.
Councilman Talaferro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Fellow council members, I'd like to introduce Clay Walker, the Director of Juvenile Services, and Kelly Todd, the Executive Director of the Volunteers for Youth Justice. And they'll be making a presentation to you on the Shreveport Harbor, and it's pretty exciting news.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it. Some of y'all have heard about this, some of you have not. We've got new faces here. But we've been working on putting together a one-stop shop full of resources for people in our community, not just for juveniles, but for families. A lot of our families, as we know, are struggling. So what we're going to do, we've been working with the school board since 2016. We've identified a building. It's on Knight Street. It's the old special services building where they used to do like the testing and the IEPs. So we've got our current agencies that we already run moving in, which is your prevention, intervention, keeping kids out of the court system, our misdemeanor referral center that allows law enforcement to bring teens who get arrested for a misdemeanor without backing up the juvenile court system. We put services in place. They still get the citation. Hopefully we can get it resolved before they go to court. So what's really exciting about this is not only are the VYJ services moving in, we're moving in other nonprofit agencies like quality mental health services, SNAP benefits. When a family walks in, we don't want them to leave. We want them to be able to get everything right when they walk through the door. Because a lot of times we refer families places and we know they never make it. So this is something we're very interested with. It's a partnership between the Caddo Parish School Board and the school system, the juvenile court, and of course our law enforcement agencies. So we wanted to give you a brief update on how all of that is going. We look to have it fully open for walk-in families in the community March 1, but we're going to start moving in the next 2 weeks. And just it's going to take time to move all these agencies in.
I would only add in that 2-week span when we do get in, we'd like to invite you all individually to come see it, learn more about the services. The idea is the school systems will be able to refer troubled teens, of course the juvenile court system, but also grandparents that are raising grandkids, families can walk in. This is for any family seeking any kind of assistance. It's meant to all be under one roof for convenience, and so hopefully we'll be able to help our citizens better. It'll be a resource for you and a resource for the police department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Does any other council member have any awards recognition of distinguished guests not to exceed 15 minutes? Mr. Mayor, do you have any awards recognition of distinguished guests not to exceed 15
I do
minutes?
not. I do have a couple of communications, but I do not have any of the other.
Also, Mr. Mayor, Tari was telling me that you had this wonderful proclamation, and she didn't think that we had time. We have time for you to.
I'd be delighted.
Yes, sir.
Several of you have mentioned that today is National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, and I do have a proclamation. Before I do that, I'll let you know, I think each of you have received a copy of the statement that I issued earlier today concerning the activities of the weekend. The proclamation says, whereas National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day is a day dedicated for showing our support for law enforcement on the local, state, and federal levels, first observed in 2015. And whereas law enforcement officers of every rank and file have chosen a profession that puts their lives on the line every day for their communities. And whereas the jobs are often thankless and take them away from their families for long hours, rarely do they know what their days have in store for them. And whereas on National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, we have an opportunity to thank them for their service and offer a token of respect. And whereas the city of Shreveport particularly appreciates the efforts and sacrifices of the Shreveport Police Department, now therefore be it resolved that I, Tom Arsenault, Mayor of the city of Shreveport, do hereby proclaim January 9, 2023 as National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day in the city of Shreveport, and urge residents to honor the heroism of all law enforcement officers, particularly current and former members of the Shreveport Police Department, and especially those who have given their lives so that others might live. And I have signed and put the seal of the city. I might also add that it's blue. It's Wear Blue Day, so that's why I'm all in blue today.
Would you stand and give them a great round of applause?
And I have the original proclamation for you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor,
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
do you have any other communication relative to city business?
I do not, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Before we move on, I'd like to also recognize the legend Timmy Lane is present with us today. The legend. Do you have any questions for Mr. Green relative to property standards?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Green, I don't know if this falls under your department or not. It may be Public Works and it may be the Police Department, but I'm getting a tremendous amount of complaints about vagrants and trash up and down Erie Drive, some on private property, some on city property, some on levee board property. I think there's even a camp underneath the bridge there right next to LSUS right now. I'd like for the three of y'all to kind of work together and clean that up, but just over the weekend, over the last week, I've gotten about 4 or 5 calls or email posts about it. So.
We did send
Okay.
some information back to Jarvis at Streets and Drainage, and
Okay.
he contacted the levee board. So we do have something working for the homeless camps along the levee.
Is there any way that your inspectors and maybe SPD can maybe, before it gets to the point, one of them said that they were getting an electric meter hooked up. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but that they were tying, or maybe they were just tying on to an electrical meter. But before it gets to that point, is there any way that officers could communicate with those other 2 departments? Because it's really becoming a problem, especially on Erie Drive.
Okay, we can reach out.
Okay,
We'll set it up.
okay, thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Mr. Green, I think that you got my note regarding Peach Street and
Yes, ma'am.
working with Mr. Norman
Yes,
on
ma'am.
that. Also, I know it's not you, with Gary, along I-220, if DOTD can clean, because they have some couches along the side where the Lakeshore exit is, and all the way up to Pines Road. They have that level of debris that is out there that needs to be cleaned with old tires. And then I also get with Commissioner Gage Watts down Lakeshore Drive, since that part is the parish, and where they're still starting to do that illegal dumping where they had that street cut off
Okay.
on Lakeshore Drive, but that sits in the parish. That area, just in case you all get calls on it, to get that area right there clean as well.
Yes, ma'am.
And my Family Dollar, that may be you, Mr. Clark, on Pines Road, and they have at Jefferson Page, the plethora of trash. It's rolling along the side of their building.
Okay.
And then I also have some issues in Lakeside. And so I'll get with you on that.
Any specific area?
Down by Notre Dame School.
Okay. Yes.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Green? Thank you, Mr. Green.
All right.
Will there be a revenue collection plan and implementation report tomorrow, Finance?
I was told that Ms. Jones was working on something for you.
Thank you. Mr. Dork, will there be any, there are no public hearings. Mr. Dork, will you have any legislation to be added on tomorrow?
No, sir, I don't think so. I think we have something that the clerk will be provided to read into the record, something we have to deal with just tomorrow, but there's no legislation attached to it.
Yes, sir.
Correct. And Mr. Chair, as Councilwoman Taylor mentioned, there is a request to add what would be resolution number 3 That's an emergency resolution to recommend hiring a contractor to install cameras throughout the city of Shreveport as soon as possible to aid in the reduction and prevention of crime. So that'll be voted on tomorrow
Yes.
to be added.
Thank you. Today, we will have public comments on non-agenda items and also agenda items that will entail for 3 minutes. The vice chair will control the time and the individuals.
It's Irma Rogers.
Good afternoon. Irma Rogers, 1920 Michoud Street, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71107.
Rudolph Glass, 1735 Arlington Avenue.
Chairman Green just stepped out. Vice Chair, new incoming councilpersons, and incoming new mayor, Arsenault. Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you this afternoon about what has previously been discussed with the Real-Time Crime Center and the cameras that are much needed within our area. This past weekend, MLK was the topic of some of those crimes, and we're not a high crime area. At any rate, when citizens call, we like to come in and say something to you to make you understand exactly how important it is for the cameras. I attended classes several years ago, some of them workshops from community development, some of them classes from NeighborWorks, a nationally certifiable institute. And one of the things they taught us is the first broken glass, which meant pay attention the first time something happens within your community. So I implore you today, the evidence that has been shown with some things that come from bringing in the cameras has been placed on record. For our purposes, I go back to 2016-17 under Mayor Tyler's administration, when we requested cameras to help to abide with us in terms of weed and trash abatement. Ms. Akery, who was over economic development at that time, did get a camera for us on one of the places where we cleaned several years. And we would clean and clean. We were in first place for cleaning because we're the largest area in this city, for number one. Number two, we had the most people that would help to clean. At any rate, when the camera was placed and it was targeted towards Audrey Lane, the trash would cease. When the camera was placed and it was targeted back towards Thomas E. Howard, pointing towards LaGuardia Street, then the trash would cease on that end, but start back up on the other end. That is just a primary example of what it can do. So that meant, and tying in with SPD being able to write some kind of a ticket if you're caught on camera about paying a fine, at least $100, $200, $300. It shows us that the cameras do work. We are deeply saddened, and I've had several citizens within MLK area call me and ask me what happened to this 4-year-old child, and I cannot answer. So that's why I'm imploring you, please. I hope that when you vote on this issue to get it up as fast as you possibly can, that you will.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ken Gruff.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, Tom. Hard to believe 2 weeks from today will be 16 years since Mr. Dark was confirmed as CEO under Glover. And I spoke last in support. Before me, 9 people spoke against because, he lived outside the city limits. The late Artis Cash, the late Lloyd Thompson, and others did not object. The next month, when Mayor Glover nominated somebody who lived outside the city, and that person was confirmed. I wonder what the difference was. So if we change the city charter, that's important to some people. It doesn't matter to me. I think the charter review is long overdue, and I support ordinance 220 and 221 to raise the salaries of the mayor. It's not enough. I wish I would amend it up. If you go back to '02 when it was last raised, the recommended amount is not even keeping up with the CPI. You'd have to add about $1,200 a month just to be even with '02. And these take effect, I think, December 31st of 2026. And Mr. Butcher, I like that Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, and that's LEAD, that's how you remember that. If we do drones to warn people of tornadoes or hazardous waste or escape convict, I think it would be nice to do 3 drones and name them Matthew Prunty, Thomas Lavallee, and Percy Johnson. That way those people are still looking over us from above. Their spirit is still with us. The city marshal election is March 25th. The qualifying is the 25th, 6th, and 7th of this month. Charlie Caldwell had a tragic accident last June the 16th in Florida, and I think I've heard 2 names of people who might run. If only one person qualifies, but it would have been great if the city administration prior had been on the ball, which unfortunately they were not, and they could have renewed the 6 tax villages that come up every 5 years on the same ballot. We're already paying for the entire election. On March 25th, I don't know of anything else on the ballot in the municipal primary, but those taxes will have to be renewed in April or in the fall on the governor's ballot. And the Healthcare Trust Fund does meet Wednesday the 18th at 3 p.m. The second floor. And who is the member among you representing this council on the Healthcare Trust Fund? Or do we know?
It was Councilman Bowman, but.
It was, but okay, let's have a representative from the council at that meeting. Maybe that can be a routine matter. But at least y'all got started fairly soon. I mean, the House took 15 rounds. It was a 15-round heavyweight bout to get a speaker.
Thank you, Mr.
And,
Kraft. Mr. Kraft,
yeah,
your time is up, sir.
okay. One more thing. Dogs or frogs? Come on. Dogs or frogs?
John Glover.
Good evening. John Glover. Do I need to say my address? Because I've not heard anyone say their address. Although y'all probably knew it by heart by now. I gave my sheet and had quite a few of those resolutions that you all are supposed to be addressing in the administrative conference today, starting with Resolution 155. Now, what caught my attention was it was from 2021. What happened? Did we drop the ball in trying to get this TIF done? And then what is it, or do we have any prospects that would warrant this TIF to even be implemented? Then I went on to look at Resolution 155. Now, this resolution had the language of Mayor Adrian Perkins in it. Surely not, since he's no longer here. So that resolution, that language of that legislation needs to be amended if it has not been done so. And then I also wanted to know, in that situation, I believe that's the one, that talked about items. But the fact sheet didn't have the name of the items. The legislation didn't say what items were being purchased. None of that. So what are you purchasing? I'd like to know that. And I know you're not going to speak to me. But then I went to Resolution 159, the Downtown Development Authority. That document was dated October 31st, 2022. Now, according to Louisiana Revised Statute, and I can't call the name, but I mean the number, but either way, there was a 30-day window that document was supposed to come before the council. So I want to know why it didn't come before the council in 2022 versus 2023. And let's see if I have one more. I believe that's it, except Resolution 158. Now, this is an ask to be able to utilize some of our city street, no matter that it's on the south end or whatever. Now, is that, or will those vehicles cause problems for our infrastructure? We already have enough problems with our roads, and allowing such to come about, what will that bring to us again? And I saw the $13,000 figure, and I saw the $550 per rod situation, but that's not enough, especially if there's going to be long-term effects from what they're asking of you, seemingly because there was no date that that resolution or that agreement would come to an end. So those things I bring to you all, but then this is the best one I have for you all. Where it is that you all speak to those who present and you ask questions, why is it not that the citizens get that same opportunity? Thank you.
John Settle.
John Settle, 4 Tealwood, that's in District B or Bravo. A couple of things. Number one, talking about police officers being short, I received a response to a public records request today from Mr. Woodley saying there was 128 open police positions. Secondly, I want to commend the property standards for the prompt action on 114 Texas. I ride by there just about every day going to work, and demolition is proceeding on that. I am concerned on Fairfield Oaks. I drive by that practically 7 days a week. The fire was, I believe, in June or July of 1920. I know there's been a lot of issues because of the homeowners association, various insurance companies, et cetera, but that eyesore really needs to be taken care of, and I believe that it's coming along soon, but that's been too long that way. Lastly, I'm confused about the agenda. It says tomorrow you'll approve minutes of a meeting of December 31, 22, December 31, 22, organization meeting, amendment number 1. Last year, I attended and or streamed over 100 council meetings. All of those ended with the council chair, Mr. Green, graveling and saying adjourned. I reviewed the video, the only video of the December 31 meeting. There's only one. And Chairman Green, meeting adjourned. The minutes have been published, public notice in the Times for Saturday, January 5th, have the language about the votes for Councilman Butcher and the votes for Councilman Green, and then it has the language, the council reconvened to reconsider the election of officers. I believe these minutes are totally inaccurate. I would challenge each of you to go to the City of Shreveport Facebook page, look at the only video of one meeting that was ended with adjourned by Councilman Green. I think tomorrow you will be addressing this. I hope you don't approve minutes that are incorrect. Thank you.
Timmy Lane.
Timmy Lane, A805 Jewel Avenue. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Most of you know what I do for the community, reporter, and since the clock struck 12 o'clock, January 1st, 2023, our city has just been under so much gunfire. As a person that's out there seeing all of this stuff firsthand, it kind of affects us a lot, along with our first responders. And so all this past week and weekend, I literally watched these officers, including the one standing behind me, work their behind off, just trying to do whatever it takes to seize the crime. But what I did notice is that they can't do it all by themselves. So I'm asking you all, have you all been meeting, come up with any type of plan to make any adjustments to help the city become safer and better? Also, what I noticed with them is out on the scenes, You know, you go somewhere to another city, you're gonna see those officers have all the supplies that they need to help gather all the evidence and everything they need for the crime scene. Unfortunately, I didn't see that. And what I saw was, like, for shell cases, of course, you know, these people are getting access to multiple rounds and big guns and stuff, and so our officers didn't even have enough markers to put down to the amount of shell cases that were located. Y'all wanna know what they use? Cups, cones, papers, stuff like that. That make it hard for them to do their job. So the time they trying to find stuff to cover up the shell casings, they can be looking for cameras on people's houses, they can be out talking to witnesses, they can be trying to locate the suspect that fled the scene. They can't do that because they trying to cover the shell cases that's on the ground. So if y'all can't think of them, of getting them some emergency funds for the supplies that they need, they don't even really have enough cameras. I know firsthand a lot of detectives, they go to my page and use my photos for their cases because they don't have the equipment. So as for the cameras for the real-time crime center, we really do need those. I was monitoring the scanner before I responded to a call in the New Zion Apartments. And I literally heard the officer call into dispatch and she said, can you call the Clear Horizon Apartments and ask them, could we look at their surveillance footage to help us solve this crime? What happened to guys, they committed a shooting, they drove to the apartment complex, bailed out the vehicle, fled the scene, and the vehicle was left in the parking lot. You wanna know what the dispatcher told the officer on the scene? Unfortunately, this apartment complex won't cooperate with us. They won't let us use their surveillance footage. So that's another thing that y'all can look into. Like the young man got shot next to McDonald's. You got the library, Street Memorial, you got the McDonald's, you have all those stores. Same situation with that scene. Everybody told the detectives their camera wasn't working. So y'all can look into something with meeting with the businesses, making them cooperate, make some, I mean, they have cameras, everybody have them. So if they can purchase product for their store to sell to us, then they can purchase video surveillance footage or tapes they need to help us. Thank y'all.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lane, thank you for what you do. I'll follow you. I think every one of us sitting on this council has told the police chief at least at one point, whatever you need, we'll get it for you. And I mean that, and I think we all mean that. So I think that whatever the chief needs, Chief White, if y'all need markers for your, you know, for gunshot, I mean, for shell casings, whatever you need. If y'all need additional funding, let us know. But I'm with Timmy. I think that we need to make sure they have the basics as well as the cameras. So thank you for bringing that up to us.
Yes, sir. No problem.
Thank you.
Ginger Marks.
Good afternoon. And before I start, I want to say that this is a copy of the ordinance that started the photo tickets. I have the three parts that I'm referring to marked. Should I turn this in somewhere? Do y'all take evidence or information? And before my time starts, I would like to say to the police that I know you don't have anything to do with photo tickets and you don't want to fool with it, and I wish you didn't have to. I got a photo ticket, which I was able to prove was wrong, was the result of faulty equipment, because another defendant documented the problem on video. Before my hearing on January the 14th, I tried to discover who installed the equipment, who calibrated it, who maintains it, and what the maintenance schedule is. But this was impossible because the implementation of this program violates the ordinance that set it up in three ways. First, the ordinance clearly states that photo speed measurement components shall be properly calibrated on a regular basis, and records shall be maintained by the chief and kept with the Shreveport Police Department. They are the first, I call the traffic department of the Shreveport Police. They told me they had no idea about that it was all kept by Blue Line Solutions in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So I called them, They refused to answer my questions and told me to contact the Shreveport police. I assumed they meant the ones in Shreveport, but they would not give me a phone number or a department. And they called themselves the City of Shreveport Police Department. That's on all the mail that they send. So I contacted many divisions of the Shreveport Police. They all told me to call Blue Line or the city. So I called every number I could find for the city and city court. They told me again to contact Blue Line. I called them again, and the whole process started over again. I got no information. The next violation is the ordinance says that the hearing officer shall designate an individual to answer within a reasonable period of time relevant and reasonable inquiries made concerning a violation. Emails and phone calls to the hearing officer that I sent were not returned. On November 23rd, Mr. Woodley sent me one certificate of some piece of equipment, it didn't say where it was, that said it was calibrated on May 19th. He added that most of the information is maintained by Blue Line and is not available to the city. He also said if other documents are located, they would be provided to me. None have been provided, so I guess the city doesn't have them. The city committed.
Ms. Marks, your time is up. What we will ask Mayor Arsenault is there someone from the city attorney's office that can speak with her, so she will be able to speak.
Okay, but there's another violation. I asked for a transcript when my hearing was through, which is guaranteed on that piece of paper, and I was told that I'd need a Freedom of Information Act to get it.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Marks, we really are trying to keep up with the time, and everybody gets 3 minutes. But I'm gonna ask you one question. I just want the answer to that question, nothing else. What's the third violation?
That the city is supposed to provide either a video, audio transcript or a written transcript of your hearing, and I was told by the hearing officer that I would need a Freedom of Information request to get that.
Okay, thank you, and I'm sure the mayor's office will. Can y'all follow up with her?
We will, just so that the council knows, earlier this week, as a result of quite a number of complaints, last week we met with Chief Smith and a number of other city officials to address many of the issues that have been raised. We're still in the process of evaluating those, and likely we'll have some changes to the operation. So I want to let you know that that is something that is currently under review.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Marvin Muhammad. Going once, going twice. Jermaine Anderson.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm speaking today about the unlicensed rental properties that continues to happen and going on right now across the city. So I'm bringing this to attention, and also pretty much again the slumlord conditions as well. So yes.
Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. That concludes public comments.
Thank you. We have no executive appointments to consider tomorrow. There are no items on the consent agenda for introduction or to be adopted. Mr. Dark, would you proceed with regular agenda legislation, please?
Yes, sir, be glad to. This brings back a lot of old interesting memories. Resolution 166 of 2021 It's one that was talked about a little bit earlier. This apparently, and you may have to help me on this, I believe this is an item that was probably on the table for the prior council and was brought back up.
Right, it was on the
To keep
table.
it from disappearing because it would have dropped off the agenda altogether.
Right, and what I'm gonna do is ask tomorrow to postpone it until the second week in March. And by then, I would have talked to the proper people to get it all custom designed.
Okay. I had pointed out to, it's just the assistant city attorney who wrote this one, that there was an amendment that would need to be done regardless of passing, because it refers to Amazon, which was probably the last TIF that was created by the city, and it would be one we would want to fix before we got any further. 155, and the citizen who spoke a while ago is correct. That was introduced under the prior mayor, and it will need to be amended to change the name of the person authorized to sign the agreement to the current mayor. All this really does is let the city of New Orleans buy some garbage trucks on a bid that we took last year. That occasionally happens the other way. Sometimes we get to do it if we find some other city that gets a good bid. New Orleans found one with us that they want to be able to piggyback on, and there's a provision in the law that allows it. You just have to approve it before it can happen. 158 authorizes an agreement between the city and Red River Bend LLC. Basically, they are drilling an oil and gas well, I believe probably a gas well, down at the end of Clyde Fant Parkway on 70th Street. And right now, because they don't have any other access, they're being forced for their trucks that are involved in all that to pull out in the middle of a really busy 70th Street end. What they've asked us to do, and we're agreeable to doing it should you approve, is allow them a temporary access down at the end of the Fant Parkway where there isn't any traffic, so they can get in and out. They've agreed to fix anything they break as a result. But this one doesn't cost us anything. It's a fairly minor payment they're going to make for it. But basically, bottom line is this is a very big safety thing. I drove there the other day and saw where one of the trucks was trying to get out, and it's just not a really good situation because of the traffic. 159 is the DDA program of work. Ms. Swain's been here, spoken at length. We should all be as good at cheerleaders for our area as Ms. Swain is for hers. But if there are any other questions, she certainly is here to answer them. Resolution 1 of 2023 is a request from Caddo Parish. We do a lot of their permit work out in the parish, but when the big tornado hit down around in the Keithville area, they want us to waive all the permit fees for the repair and cleanup work out there, and we have no objection to doing that at all. On introduction of resolutions not to be adopted prior to the 24th.
Oh, just a minute, Mr. Chair.
Okay, sure.
Are there any questions or comments on any of these regular items?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
on the River Bend thing, Mr. Dark, you mentioned that they would be responsible for any damages. I'm assuming they're gonna go down Clyde Fant and then try to go either over the bridge or down the Shreveport Barstow Highway. Is that?
I'm guessing what they're likely to do is go up to the Parkway and go up to the first place they can turn around on the Parkway and go back towards 70th Street. That'd be the most likely.
So can we monitor that? Because I know just from experience that, and where you live, you saw it on Leonard Road and Ellerby Road and Overton Brooks. They will tear a road up in a heartbeat. So I'm not opposed to helping them for safety purposes, but I also don't want them to tear up.
We're absolutely going to watch it. This is a safety thing for us and them and a convenience thing, but the likelihood is this is mostly during the actual work on the well, and there won't be nearly as much traffic after that. So we'll be able to keep pretty good watch on it.
Okay, thank you. That's all I need.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Taylor.
Mr. Dark, I know that the purpose is to obviously help the trucks get out in a safe manner to avoid future collisions out there. Obviously, one of my concerns for that area is the destruction of the Clyde Fant Parkway. Now, I think the only place that they can turn around is probably over there by the park, where there may be a cut through and go into those apartment complexes, which is a considerable distance. And I agree with Councilman Butcher is that, we just need to monitor that if we're going to approve it, because there looks like it's going to be 3 years. I know that they're drilling approximately 8 to 11 wells, 3 wells per year. So that I think it's going to be about 3 years that they're going to be asking us to do this.
What we can certainly do, and Shelley, help me if I'm promising something you can't do. one way or the other, we need to try to probably take some pictures of that section of the Parkway before we start, so there won't be any arguments about what it was, whether they did it or it was that way when they got there.
That's a great idea. Thank you. Thank you.
I think in going in and adding that road, and then it helps with the matter of public safety. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I said,
These things
I
make
think
it hard to hear.
I think in going in and adding that piece of roadway, that it helps with the matter of public safety. Going in, and so if they're amenable to going in and making sure that there are any repairs that need to be done.
That's what they mean. That's what they promised. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, that's a whole lot more than what a lot of other ones have done.
Yep.
driving to Soda Parish any length of time, you can see what
Correct.
that looks like.
Are there any other questions or comments on these items? If not, Mr. Dark, would you proceed with introduction of resolutions not to be adopted prior to January 24, 2023?
We actually have one more oil and gas one, an introduction of resolutions. Resolution 2 authorizes a right-of-way and easement agreement for a pipeline right-of-way out in the Shreve Park Industrial Park where there's not anybody around. There's about a 400 and something foot pipeline easement that these folks have asked for, and they're going to pay us a little over $13,000 for the privilege. I don't think this one will affect pretty much, I mean, I've seen the map, it's pretty much out in the country, but it's property we own, so.
Do we have any questions or comments on this particular item? If not, Mr. Dark, would you proceed with introduction of ordinance not to be adopted prior to January 24?
Yes, sir. Ordinance 1 revises the code relative to landfill disposal fees. The city has a contractor, Republic Waste operates the landfill, and their contract allows them to raise the fee once a year based on a CPI formula that includes regular CPI plus a certain factor for the price of gasoline. That's capped at 6% a year because of what happened last year. They have told us it's going up the full 6%. Actually starting January 1st. What we are doing is going up as well 6% effective March 1st, which is the first even month we can get it done, and make it become effective. I think it goes up about $1 and about $2.30 a ton, and that's the rate that the people that come through the landfill gate will start paying March 1st. Ordinance 2 is a zoning case. It looks like it's for truck parking. It passed unanimously 6-0, and Mr. Clark is here if you have any questions about that.
Thank you. Are there any questions on those items? If not, Mr. Dark, would you please proceed with ordinance on second reading and final passage?
Thank you. 135A is basically a procedural one. Apparently, at some point last year, you all passed an ordinance to change the name of Red Fox to God's Country, and for whatever, there's some legal reason that says we needed to wait on that one before proceeding, and this is bringing it back up so it can be adopted legally, and you can't pass this one until the February 14th meeting because of that legal time frame. 220 is the salary proposal for the mayor. That, as you all discussed earlier, is something that cannot happen or cannot go into effect until the end of this current term. Same thing with 221 for you all. 222 is an ordinance, and this one is actually new. It's Ms. Taylor's piece of legislation that would require businesses that are doing events inside a city facility to not be credit card only and require cash. And I would defer to Ms. Taylor on speaking on that one.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on these items?
Thank
Madam
you.
Clerk, is there any table legislation to be removed from the table today?
There is none.
We have no property standards or ABO appeals to consider today. We have no MPC or ZBA appeals to consider tomorrow. We have a taxi appeal to be considered today. Will a representative from SPD come forward? Is Mr. Danny Malcolm present?
He's here.
At this time, the Shreveport Police Department will present their case.
And we do need to swear them in first.
All right. At
If
this
you all,
time, the clerk will swear you in.
and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Mr. Brass, you may
Good afternoon, Council. On November 15th, Mr. Macon applied for a vehicle for hire license. He sent a notification stating that he was denied due to failing to meet qualifications due to his long criminal history. Chapter 102, 62.
Number 3 basically says he has not been convicted of any felony or of any misdemeanor involving moral turpitude defined for the purpose of this article as a long or repetitive history of violence or criminal behavior against the criminal laws of this state, has not served any part of a sentence, therefore within 5 years before the date of filing this application, and he is not presently charged therewith or with any felonies, offenses, or misdemeanors set forth in subsection 2 of this section, excepting minor traffic violations or with violating any provisions of this article. So with the application was denied for the repetitive history, criminal history. Mr. Macon has over 60 arrests stemming all the way up to last year. I think there are 35 felony arrests and 27 misdemeanors. And I think 16 of them were convictions.
Give me those numbers again.
Give you the exact one. We have 61 total arrests.
Okay.
I think it's 35 felonies and 27 misdemeanors. The most recent arrest was disturbing the peace. It was on, I think it was March of 21 or 22.
And no conviction.
Are there any questions for Mr. Bryant?
I have one. And how many of those arrests were convictions?
I want to say 16.
Were any of the 16 felonies?
Yes, it was only. $27 convictions.
27 convictions?
Yes.
All misdemeanors or some felony and some misdemeanor?
Some felony, some misdemeanor.
Okay.
What's the last one? That's a...
Last one was a misdemeanor, but I don't think it was a conviction yet, or I don't know if he's done with court.
arrested for disturbing the peace on my porch.
Sir, you'll be able to present your case in just a
okay.
moment. Are there any other questions for Mr.? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
quick
sir.
question for you, sir. The 35 felonies,
Yes.
can you give me an idea of what those felonies were?
Yes, so.
I mean, I don't want you to go through, I mean, it seems like it's probably the same thing, but I'm just
So
curious.
just from drugs, meth, cocaine, simple burglary, child molestation, driving while intoxicated, simple burglary, Schedule 2 cocaine, simple theft, operating a vehicle while intoxicated, operating while intoxicated, third offense, possession of marijuana, and most recent one was disturbing the peace.
And out of those, 17 were convictions? Is that
Yes,
what I heard?
I'll have to get my phone
That's fine,
again,
that's
but I think it
close.
was like 27, she just said.
Oh, 27?
Yes.
All right, my mistake, thank you.
So with the child molestation, is he a sex offender?
No,
Okay, so
those
he was convicted
those
of
were
that.
convicted
Okay.
two times.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Brass? Thank you, Mr. Brass. Mr. Macon, you may present your case.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
It is true, I was arrested for all of those, but that molestation of a juvenile, I got the transcript at my house showing where that conviction was dismissed. And I just told Councilman Telefaro about it. But in the misdemeanor charge that I was just recently arrested on, I filed a retaliation complaint with the police department because I was arrested because I wanted to speak to a supervisor, and the supervisor didn't like me. When he got there, he said, arrest him. When I went to court, they didn't show up. So that was thrown out. And true, I was arrested quite a few times and convicted about 5 times of drugs. The simple burglary charge, they're supposed to have a copy of the report and recommendation and the judgment signed by Chief Justice Tom Stagg in my file, which they are supposed to be given to me here today. And then here, back in December of last year, I called somebody because the people that was on my porch was making a lot of noise, wouldn't be quiet, and the police told me they could not arrest those people because they were on my porch. My question is, if they can't arrest anybody on my porch because of private property, how did they take me off my porch and arrest me without a warrant? But I'm here today trying to get my cab permit back because I lost my check with the VA, and I can drive a car even with this wheelchair. And I know I can do good at the cab company and have people calling back for me, because I did before. And my criminal record is 15 years old, except for that recent misdemeanor conviction. Well over 15. And Louisiana revised statute states that anything over 10 years old cannot be used to enhance any part of your sentence or anything. And so therefore I am requesting a cab permit to pay my bills that I lost the money to pay and get back to work. I appreciate y'all for that. But still I got the question, how is there a double standard when I can be arrested on my porch, but nobody else can when I call them? I'd like to know the answers to that. I've been trying to talk to the chief of police about it, and he hadn't called me back. And then I get threatened to be given a citation because I'm calling the police to get these people to stop making all this noise at my house, and it's hurting me with my neighbors.
Detective Bradley. So when is it denied? How, is it the last 5 years?
Everything is over 5 years old, including the last misdemeanor that I was convicted of, which was possession of marijuana, which I do have a medical prescription for now.
So it says he has not been convicted of any felony or any misdemeanor involving moral turpitude, defining for the purposes of this article as long or repetitive history of violence and criminal behavior against criminal laws of this state, has not served any part of a sentence, therefore within 5 years before date of filing this application.
So he served?
His last sentence might have been 2008.
What's that?
Was,
I can give you the answer probably, but. Huh?
so 2012.
Please, it said if you had anything in the last 12 months
for what?
besides the disturbing the peace.
No, ma'am. Disturbing the peace was the last thing that was last year.
And how much prior to the disturbing police was he arrested?
I think it was a 2017, 2018, sorry.
No, he wasn't convicted of that, though.
March 17, 2017.
And what was that for?
I think he pled guilty. 2 seconds.
Is it misdemeanor?
Yes.
It was... 2018, resisting an officer. 317 to 2021, disturbing the peace as well. 2017, possession of marijuana, was convicted. 2012, possession of Schedule 2.
Excuse me, Detective Bradley, so
Oh,
give me a quick synopsis here on, so why are you denying him the license? Just
Was the long
straight out.
repetitive history of criminal
Okay,
violence.
but I understand that, was this 15 years old?
No,
As he
it's
states, except for the
the last conviction, yes. The last conviction would have been for drugs in 2017, so yes.
So do you have a guideline of, is there a certain amount of time that they don't get in any trouble before you will issue them a permit?
Well, if it's the repetitive history, like it's stated in the ordinance, a long history of violence or criminal behavior. It didn't have a time frame on it.
So that's my question. So you read that, that's part of the ordinance. So you read that part that said a long history, read that to me again?
So it says, for the purposes of the article, as a long or repetitive history of violence or criminal behavior, comma, against criminal laws of this state, comma, has not served any part of a sentence, therefore, within 5 years of the date of filing this application.
So I guess we're the judge of what long and criminal history is.
Let me ask a quick question from Mr. Macon. Did you specifically say that all these offenses, the felonies, a majority of the felonies and misdemeanors and so forth, happened like 15 years ago?
My last felony conviction was a DWI 3rd in 2007. I got arrested May 1st, 2012 for possession of Schedule 2, no conviction. The last conviction I had was in March 2017 when I was arrested for possession of marijuana, and I went in front of the judge and took my charge.
How much marijuana did you have?
Not even about a joint.
That fits in with your
Just one joint?
And like I say, I now have a medical
You have your
prescription
medical
for it.
prescription for it?
So is there any way, I don't know if y'all can answer this question or not, but since I do have medical marijuana now, can I get that conviction grandfathered under my medical marijuana?
You need a lawyer.
Huh?
You need a lawyer.
You're looking at one.
I have a question, Mr. Macon. Do you
Yes,
own
sir.
a cab?
Huh?
Do you own a cab?
No, sir. Yellow
No.
Checker is gonna give me a 24-hour cab.
And has Yellow Checker, have they done a thorough background check on you as well?
Yes, sir, they have.
And did they say they were hiring you?
They've had my application since before November 15th.
So they're willing to accept liability for you being an employee?
I don't know Mr. Roberts' last name, but he told me that as soon as I get this cab permit, he can put me in a car.
Can he come down here and testify to that?
Yes, he would.
I'd like to hear that also.
We'd like to hear him come down and testify to that.
So is
Okay,
there,
I will call him in the morning.
so is there a motion to postpone this until the next council meeting and have Mr., what's his name?
Roberts.
Roberts to come down and testify to the fact that if in fact he testifies that he's agreeable to allowing you to drive, then we would take up this matter on the next council meeting
Is it possible, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but is it possible for Mr. Robert to come down, because I'm behind on some bills right now, and give a written statement or something to the city council's office?
Is there a way you can call Mr. Roberts on the phone right now?
Mind if I turn it on? Come on.
And for the record, I know I had the numbers off. It was 34 misdemeanor arrests, 27 felony arrests, and 61 total.
So, Detective Bradley, do y'all deny many of these permits?
So we have about 200 a year, and this is probably maybe the first or second one out of those 200.
Okay.
As soon as it comes on. I do have a question. The lady that was up here just a few minutes ago, she brought up the fact about the Shreveport Photo Division. I got a ticket when I wasn't driving the car around September 30th.
Mr. Macon, we can only discuss what's before
Okay.
us today. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I agree with Councilwoman Taylor. I think we need to hear from Mr. Robert.
Yes, sir.
And that would change my opinion of whether, if he's willing to hire him, then I think I know how I would vote.
Yes, sir.
So would we ask Mr. Roberts to come down in person? So moved.
I would like to hear him in person as well.
Yes,
so
sir.
I hate
Mr.
to
Macon,
hold you up.
Mr. Macon, we hate to hold you up, but the motion is
I'm
to,
fixing it coming on now where I can call over there. Maybe Miss Jennifer's there.
yes, sir. Thank you. At this time, we have a motion on the floor that we would take this matter up on the 24th. Is that the 24th? 23rd of January.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Taylor, second by Councilman Butcher. Are there any questions or comments? If not, let's vote.
Do we need to raise our hand?
Let's do a roll call.
It's not coming up.
Mine's not up either.
What is going on here?
Councilwoman Taylor,
Yes.
Councilman Brooks,
Yes?
Councilman Farrell,
Yes.
Councilman Butcher,
Yes.
Councilman Jackson,
Yes.
Councilman Green,
Yes.
and Councilwoman Bowman.
Yes.
Thank you.
7 of the postponed until the 23rd.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, are there any appeals?
I'm still trying to get them.
No other appeals.
Are there any reports from officers, boards, and committees? Madam Clerk, is there a clerk's report?
There's no clerk's report this week.
We have no executive session. If there's nothing else to come before this body today, we stand adjourned.